Good afternoon, everyone. Life is about taking chances, trying new things, having fun, making mistakes, and learning from it. A very good afternoon to all the guests and dignitaries. With great joy and immense excitation, I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all of you for today's workshop on references and citation organized by DG Section. So I am Mandar Neve with my co-host Kanika Garg. Welcome you all on the behalf of DG Section. So before I proceed, let me take a brief moment for the introduction of our organization. So DG Saksham is an initiative of SEMS Group, which has been developed content for over 300 courses in multiple languages, which range from 4 hours to 6 months in various sectors of IT, BFSI, retail, and entrepreneurship for all age groups from school children, youth, professionals, and senior citizens. DG Saksham has also conducted more than 100 webinars, 10 FDPs and workshops, 6 international conferences. DG Saksham has impacted more than 15,000 plus lives through various webinars, conferences, workshops, and seminars across the globe. The topic for today's workshop is references and citations, which is presented by Dr. Raja Sankaran sir. The term reference and citations are also often used to refer to the same thing, although a citation tends to mean the part of the text within your assignment where you acknowledge the source, whilst the reference usually refers to the full bibliographic information at the end. So everyone, please make sure you have downloaded the Mendeley software and you all are here with the instructions that are given to you all for the workshop. So be ready with that to continue the session. I'm profusely elated to take an opportunity to introduce our chief guest of the day, Dr. Raja Sankaran, who is a PhD from IIM Ranchi, is a professor in marketing management in a B school ISME Bengaluru. He has over 30 years of industry experience and teaching experience. He has held management positions with multinational companies in service delivery roles before moving to academics. In CSC, he was posted in the UK in the role of account lead and general manager. He has implemented 3 Six Sigma projects resulting in account savings and improved service delivery for national grade UK account. In NIIT, he has conducted 100 plus corporate trainings in enterprise management at 30 plus countries worldwide, including USA, Asia Pacific, African countries, and was posted later on in Australia. He has also conducted trainings at Microsoft, Dallas, USA, and Seoul, South Korea. He is a member of American Psychological Association also. He has published research papers in ABDC journals, Marketing Intelligence and Planning, Emerald and Taylor, and Francis journals. He has been awarded Best Research Paper winner for the research paper presented at Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai, in International Research Conference. He has conducted various trainings and FDPs on workshop on reliability and validity, a guide to publishing research papers, managing references and citations, and many more. So the world is full of diamonds and gems, and we are having one of them here today to build this event. With this note, I would like to give my heartiest welcome to our guest speaker, Dr. Raja Sankaran, with a big round of applause.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and namaskar to everyone. So the prerequisites was shared with everyone, and I hope all participants have installed the Mendeley desktop as well as the Microsoft Word plugin and created a user account in Mendeley and installed the Chrome web version as well. If you have not done so, the links have been shared with all of you. Please do so. It hardly takes 10 minutes time in order to do the installation. The agenda for today would be to, I will first go through the briefing on referencing. The focus would be primarily on APA referencing style, though as you're aware, there are various referencing styles that we use. Whenever we submit to the journals, we need to comply with those referencing style. So as part of the workshop today, I will focus with an example from APA or the American Psychological Association referencing style, the version 7. With Mendeley, I will also show about how to change from one style to the other style easily with just a click of a button. We'll go through some of the concepts of what is the need of using a reference manager or an RMS, what Mendeley is all about, So the installation and setup, as I mentioned, uh, you should have already installed as part of the prerequisites of this workshop, the Mendeley desktop, Microsoft Word plugin, created a user account in Mendeley, as well as installed the web. And then we will go through the interface of Mendeley. And there are 7 different approaches to create a library item in Mendeley. I will go through each one of them. Then how do you perform import and export, as well as what a watch folder is. And we will also be looking into some from managing the different library items in Mendeley. For example, how do you organize them? How do you check for duplicates? How do you sync them with the cloud version? How do we merge the documents? Then we will get into inserting the citations. I will cover both the type of citations, in text and the end text citation in Microsoft Word. So this will include about narrative citation, as well as the parenthetical citation of it's basically based upon the style of the author in writing the particular sentence or a manuscript. So we will go through both of these. Then we'll go through how do we edit citations, as well as export the library. So this is the main agenda of what we have for today. For the next 3 hours, I will give adequate time for the participants to ask questions. So you can raise your hand or use the chat box in order to ask questions. Whenever I have a logical break, I will give breaks multiple times in order to ask questions. So the very first point which comes to our mind is, what is the importance of referencing? Why do we need referencing, and why so much of emphasis is given? Now, these are predominantly used by research scholars, by faculty members as part of their regular manuscripts and research papers that they submit to different journals, as well as for the those who are doing, for example, post-graduation as part of their dissertations, that they make use of referencing. So the importance of referencing is, A, to maintain the international standards. There are specified way in which the references has to be entered in, and it has to be cited in. So we'll go through about what these are to obey the copyrights as well as the IPR. Now, the third point is very, very critical, because in digital world, what we normally tend to do is do a copy and paste. This is something which is not something supported as part of the academic writing. So we have to give due credit to the owner, both moral and ethical credit. We cannot simply use a sentence as it is. Based upon the way that it exists for, we have to paraphrase it if we have adopted a particular scale, for example, or we have cited from some of the papers. We need to ensure that we have referenced it appropriately, and to gain attention in the research community. Now, the question comes in is, can all this be done manually? Of course, yes, but it requires a lot of typing. It's a mammoth task. Now, if I take an example of, if you need to submit a research paper to a journal, again, it depends upon the type of research paper, the number of citations or the references will increase. For example, if I write a manuscript and submit it to a good top journal, the expectation is around 100 to 150. If I'm writing a systematic literature review or a meta-analysis, the citations might still increase to around 150 to 200. If I submit my PhD thesis, it could span anything between 250 to 300 references to be cited within the document. So it does require a lot of task by the scholars. Hence, everything has to exactly match between what is cited versus what is given in the bibliography. So there are a lot of typing involved. It is a mammoth task. So it could also lead to mistakes. For example, what I talked about, the citations with the referencing. If a particular work is cited but not included in the reference section, or vice versa, that could lead to immediate desk rejection. Or if you submit it to your PhD thesis to the review board, they might immediately reject it, looking in from the referencing, stating that you have not done a good academic work. Similarly, there could be lost references either within the bibliography or within any of the place where you have cited a particular reference in the manuscript. So it has to be looked into from the point of view of it can be done manually, but too much of mammoth task. The focus of a research scholar should be on the research rather than on the citations. Hence, there is a lot of benefit by making use of a reference management software. The second thing is there are too many referencing styles. For example, what we talk about the APA referencing style 7 as of now, which was introduced in 2019. APA stands for American Psychological Association. In social sciences, predominantly, I come from the marketing and the management domain. We use APA style, but that's not, again, the only style which is being used for. When we submit a particular manuscript or a research paper to a journal, we have to comply with the requirements of that particular journal for the referencing style to be used. APA is one, Chicago is other, Harvard is the third. Like this, there are multiple variants of each one of them as well. Similarly, in case of law, it uses Blue Book. In case of medical, there are medical and pharmacology. There are other referencing styles which are being used. So number of referencing styles are many. Now, when I submit my research paper to a particular journal, if it gets rejected at any different stage, for example, then I move on to submit to another journal. If it uses a different referencing style, I need to make a lot of changes. Hence, doing it manually again is a mammoth task. So we need to understand what these referencing styles are and how do we use a particular referencing style to comply with the requirement of a particular journal. And similarly, when you're submitting your, for example, your PhD thesis or your dissertation, you need to comply with the guidelines of what has been provided by the university. So it's very, very critical to follow that. Now, what happens if a scholar or a student uses an incorrect referencing style versus a correct referencing style? So on the left-hand side of this table, what I have listed down is if an incorrect or an inappropriate referencing style is used, what could be the implications? On the right-hand side of this particular table, I have listed down about using the correct referencing style, what will it lead to? Okay. So if a scholar uses incorrect or an inappropriate referencing style, it portrays that the scholar has got an unclear thinking or is quite lazy in terms of an intellect laziness, or is simply ignorant of the fact that what should be the right referencing styles to be used. Or it could be that the scholar is unaware of the correct method to cite a particular paper in the manuscript. The third is mixing up of various referencing style in the dissertation, thesis, or research paper. Now, typically what this means about mixing up is, let me show you a quick demo. Okay, I hope everybody is familiar with Google Scholar. Okay, if I go to Google Scholar, say I search for any of the research papers, I find, for example, the very first one. I use this. Okay, I find, okay, this particular research paper is something that I want to use for mobile payments as part of my study. So I review this. Okay, this is from a good Elsevier journal. I review this. I say, okay, this is fine. Now, what some of the scholars also do is, if they find there are, at the end of each of the research paper, there'll be citations. If you find that, okay, this particular study is something I should be using, I should be citing as well. So they could typically go here and then say, okay, they would create a section as references and copy this. Okay. So now what would be the drawback of this? If I go back into this and if I look for the APA citation, okay. Now, if you look into exactly the way that it should be cited for, there is a lot of difference between the two. Hence, we need to make sure that correct referencing style is used. I will cover in the next few slides about what should be the style to be used. And if you see here, the way that it is cited versus the second one, it's totally different. Hence, this is what is known as mixing up of different referencing styles within a document. This is something which should be avoided. So you should use only one specific referencing style that it should be used as part of the manuscript, thesis, or the research paper. If incorrect referencing style is used, it's liable to be desk rejected by the top journals. So as soon as you submit, the research paper is written back. That's what it means by the desk reject. If you use little or no citations, it indicates that the scholar fails to demonstrate the writing as well as the thoughts clearly, and your thesis guide will form an opinion of a non-scholarly writing. That means it is not academically correct, and hence it would be rejected. Now, when you use the correct referencing style, what does it reflect? First, that you have been quite thorough and rigorous. That means you are providing now a quality work of whatever research that you have done. It also shows and demonstrates your understanding about the topic of the research. Now, as individuals, we need to be credible. So with correct referencing, it actually builds each of us as individuals, as a scholar. Now, it's the ability to synthesize knowledge by drawing appropriate ideas. Now, you all might be familiar with the section of literature review. So it comes in various forms. If it is a PhD thesis, it comes as a chapter. In case of a research paper, it will be a particular section on literature review. Similarly, in different other sections also, you will be citing and quoting them. So literature review is simply not saying what A said or what A did or what B did. You simply quote a particular one, and no. It is something what you should look for is how do you synthesize these literature, build up on those ideas, build up on the knowledge, and then draw your conclusion out of it. So this is again very, very critical. So using correct referencing will also reflect that the scholar has got the ability to synthesize the knowledge. It recognizes different points of view. It also authenticates the originality of the source, from where that you have actually cited them and the way that you have drawn your conclusions from. Again, it comes from various sections. For example, if you are doing in a research paper, you have got a section after you do your data analysis, you come to drawing inference. So when you say whether your hypothesis supported or not supported, you also given the rationale based upon the context of your study, why a particular hypothesis supported or not, and what similarity or differences do you find with other studies or extant studies in your domain, in your particular country or in other countries. So that gives in something by which you could synthesize the knowledge as well as authenticate the originality of the resource. It also projects a high degree of maturity on the scholars, and using the extant literature, it also leads up to your study, wherein you build up on the knowledge. With reference management tools, it helps scholars to create as well as manage their list of references. Now, what I talked about, if you are writing your thesis, you might require around 250 to 300. Similarly, if you're writing some SLRs or you're submitting your manuscript to a top journal, the number of research papers that you have is quite large. Hence, it should be easy for scholars in order to manage them. It is also designed to organize citations into specific formats. These are nothing but the different referencing styles that we use for in order to prepare the manuscript as well as bibliographies. It provides a way to download references into a reference management tool. Now, what typically this means is we all have a habit of reading some of the research papers. Once we have the access to it, we download it in a particular folder, and then we could scribble something, read, annotate, do a lot of these things, or write in a particular notepad. Rather than doing all this could be done in one particular place in a reference management software. So I'll also go through about how do we do this. So rather than downloading it elsewhere and then looking forward to find this, everything can be organized with the reference management software. Before I dwell into further details, you all should be familiar with the APA referencing style. I will briefly introduce about this as well as about how the references and the citations are used before I dwell into Mendeley. So I will give a very brief introduction with respect to this. So now what we use for the APA, which is from American Psychological Association, is the 7th edition, which was introduced in 2019. But again, you should always follow the rules of your particular university or the requirements as per the journal formats which are required for. As I said, there are various formats that exist for. So in social sciences in management, typically we make use of APA, and which is the 7th edition. There are specified rules, if I may put it this way, or the grammars or the syntax, the way that the citation should happen. For example, whenever you refer to a particular research paper to be cited in your manuscript, whether it is single author, whether there are 2 authors, 3 authors, or more than 3 authors, also, if you are citing the same author, one publication or multiple publications, if there are multiple publications within the same year or different years, so there are specified rules on how all this should be used. And any doubts that you have with respect to citing, in spite of using the reference management software, always refer to the publication manual. This is the official publication manual of APA, or the American Psychological Association 7th edition. Okay. This also provides the rules. For example, if we normally cite secondary data, websites, the books, all for each one of them, there are specified formats that should be used in. Okay. Following now. The next is whenever we search for a particular research paper in a publisher's website, or the journal page. Now, these are typically the information that we see, and what is that we normally look in for. So this is my research paper, which was published in Marketing Intelligence and Planning. The research paper title is Why Customers Make Mobile Payments Applying Means and Chain Approach. Now, the information that we'd be looking for in every such publication would be, number 1, the name of author or the authors. The way it is listed is the first name followed by the last name, comma, the second author, comma, the third author, and so on. But the way that APA uses in citation is something which needs to be kept in mind. So I'll give few tips as we progress through. So please do make note of all of this. So whenever we look for the information, it is always given with the first name followed by the last name. But when we make an entry in Mendeley, it is either we can use this format, or we would use the last name, comma, first name. But the way the citation happens in APA will always be the last name of the first author, comma, the initials of the first author, then would be for the second author, and so on. So when you make an entry in Mendeley, it should be the complete name of the author should be entered. Okay. So the first is about the name of the authors, followed by what is the date of publication. Okay, when was the article published in this particular research paper is what we need to look for this information. So this one is January 2021, followed by what is the title of publication or the name of the article. So why customers make mobile payments applying means and chain approach. The next we will be looking in for is source of publication. It could be the journal in which it is published, followed by the volume number and the issue number. And we would also look for the page number, the starting and the ending page. When we cite this particular information in our manuscript or a dissertation or thesis or a research paper, it is always entered in an APA format like this, which includes the last name of the first author, comma, the initials of the first author with a full stop, then comma, ampersand. If there are 2 authors, there would be an ampersand followed by something similar for the second author. Okay. So the first thing is about the author or the author's name, followed by the year would be in brackets, followed by the title or the name of the research paper. I've highlighted each section so that it's easy to know, followed by the source or the research paper. Now in APA format, this has to be in italics, followed by the volume number. So volume number 39 typically indicates that it is the 39th year of the publication of that particular journal. So the first year they would have started would be volume 1, followed by volume 2, 3, and 4. Then comes the issue number. Now, number of issues that the journal publishes in a particular journal would typically vary. For example, some journals would have only 1 in a year. Some could have every quarter. Some could have on monthly basis. So accordingly, the number of issues would again change. So this volume followed by the issue number is used, and then the page numbers. So the starting page and the last page of that particular manuscript, followed by the DOI, or the digital object identifier. DOI is something which uniquely identifies the existence of a particular research paper digitally. Okay, so these are unique numbers which are given in for. So I can search for my research paper just by this particular DOI. Okay, now before I dwell into further, are there any questions from the participants?
There is just one question, how many average references must a researcher go through to write a PhD thesis?
Okay, as I said, it typically depends upon the I would strongly suggest you should follow your university guidelines. Now, there are no hard and fast rule for this. Now,
Yeah,
why I
he's
mentioned
from
about
Quantum University,
Quantum University. Okay, which place is
yeah,
this Quantum University?
Roorkee, he said.
Oh, here, Roorkee. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect. Now, typically what happens is whenever you are, now why I asked the name of the university is because there are certain norms that you follow as part of the university whenever you write your PhD thesis. I would say ideally it could depend upon, number one, the number of studies that you have used. Number two, how depth or in-depth of these studies that you have as part of your research. In certain cases, it could be on a range. If I give a range, it could be anything from 150 to 300. That's only a range what I'm giving in. For example, when I did my PhD, mine was consisting of 4 studies. The first study was qualitative, followed by 3 studies which were quantitative in nature. So certain universities also has these different norms about how many studies are being used, because I have done from IIM Ranchi, and in IIMs we have got multi studies. It's not just a single study that we use for, but predominantly most of the scholars would use a single study as part of their thesis. So it will drastically change from the thesis to thesis based upon the type of work that you undergo. The other considerations are, like I talked about, SLR and meta-analysis. So in the literature review section of your PhD thesis, if you have engaged into SLR or doing a meta-analysis, again, the number of citations would also increase accordingly. So that's the reason I said there are no hard and fast rule, but I can give you a range of the number of references which are used typically on a PhD thesis. Okay, I hope that answers. Any other questions?
Yeah. How do we cite online sources the APA style?
Okay, when you're talking about online sources, I believe you're talking about the websites. And if yes, I will be demonstrating this a bit later on. I've just introduced about the references now. So when we work with Mendeley, I will go step by step. First, about making use of the research papers, citing them in a Word document, both in text as well as in text citation. And then I can take an example from this website as well in order to cite for. Okay. Now, when we move into the research, there are various types of data or the formats of data as well as the usage of it. In today's world, since everything has got digital, there are it's much easy, but also it creates a lot of issues as well. So let's look into what kind of challenges are being faced by these scholars. I'm sure most of you would have heard about the Moore's law. If I make use of the Moore's law and the growth of the data over a period of time, what we see on the x-axis is in terms of number of years, starting from 2006 onwards till 2020. The graph is as recent of 2020, and on the y-axis is the data volume. So if you see here, it's an exponential growth of data, what it has happened over the past few years. We all are familiar with what KB, MB and gigabytes and terabytes are. So if you want to buy a USB drive, you get in few gigabytes. If you have an external hard disk that you want to get in for, some terabytes is what we look for. So the data what we see here is actually into 40 zettabytes. So it's not too far that we talk about yottabytes. The kind of challenge what it follows is also quite high for the research scholars. So imagine what we look for, 10 to the power 9 for the gigabyte versus 10 to the power 24 for yottabytes. So looking in for information, the growth of the data is again quite huge. So if I want to draw this analogy from Moore's law, Moore's law is typically what they used into the semiconductors in order to understand about the number of transistors that can go into a semiconductor device or a microprocessor, as well as the miniaturization of this. If I want to draw an analogy from Moore's law into the growth of the data, so the amount of data in the world actually doubles every 2 years. So look into the kind of challenge that you would be facing. If you're a research scholar who has just joined in today, you submit your PhD thesis in the next 3 to 4 years' time. So the amount of data has actually grown quite high by the time you submit. So you need to make sure whether have you included relevant studies as part of your research or not. So this is something which actually bothers a research scholar. So the kind of problem that exists is, one, data is too much fragmented and it is poorly indexed. If you want to search for the research papers, it is not in one place. Multiple, if I talk about publishers, there are many publishers. I'm talking about only, top rated good journals. Many publishers, each publisher is having n number of journals that they publish as well. So identifying, finding, and then indexing them is again a mammoth task and unusable. Data often lacks the content or metadata to be used by others. I'll give an example of what metadata is a bit later on. Now, when we talk about diverse data, so as a scholar, we could use something like equipments. It could be the test results from each of the equipments. It could be from the softwares. If we're using quantitative analysis, for example, you're doing, say, structural equation modeling. So you use mediation, moderation, say SPSS, or PLSM. Accordingly, the type of outputs that you get, what needs to be used in for. It could also be, something on the scripts and codes. It could be from picture objects, some process mapping that you use for. So the type of data that could be used is typically based upon the research, and it's quite diverse in nature. So what we use is something known as a FAIR guiding principle. F stands for findable. So as a research scholar, you need to be something focusing on your research rather than spending too much amount of time on searching for other, in so many places. For example, when we use a research paper for literature review, we read the literature, we have a method of scribbling them or writing or making our own notes. So rather than putting it in different places, everything should be in such a way that it's easy for the scholar to find them. So it should be finding the research paper itself and the ones which are relevant to your study, and about the type of data that you want to use as part of your study. It should be accessible, open source, usable, interoperable format. So many things that we talk about here. For example, if I'm co-authoring with another scholar or say another faculty, what needs to happen is this. If I've created my own library item or the list of papers that I want to cite within my research paper, when it is being co-authored by another person, it should not happen that another person also needs to input all these information into the library. The type of information that we should use is something which should support in multiple devices. It should be usable. It should be something which can be interoperable into multiple devices, as well as from one format to the other format. Interoperability labeled with clear defined vocabulary, and it should be reusable, licensed, high quality, as well as unique entries. So let's go through the introduction of Mendeley now. Once we understand about the kind of challenges the research scholars face, and some introduction onto what I've given onto the references, different styles of references that exist for. So what is Mendeley? Mendeley is an free academic software. That means it is typically used for references and citation by academicians, by research scholars, by students for their manuscript, for the PhD thesis, or for their dissertations. It can be used in multiple domains. That means it could be in social sciences, in management, agricultural, pharmacology, law, any domain that you look in for can be used for references using Mendeley. It is cross-platform. That means you can install this either on a Windows operating system or a Macintosh, iOS, or a Linux. It also supports various types of browsers. It could be Google Chrome, It could be Internet Explorer or the one that you use as part of your iOS as well as the Linux operating system. So what you get, this screen is the for the desktop, and the second one is for the web. I'll show when I go into the demonstration part of this. As part of the prerequisites for the workshop, you all have received this instructions in order to install Mendeley as well as to create a user account. So this web page typically talks about, you'll have a button to install Mendeley. And once you download Mendeley and install it on your system, you can go ahead and then create a user account. Now, the reason for creating a user account is so that whenever you use your Mendeley desktop, the library gets synchronized with the cloud version of Mendeley. So you have a replica on your system as well as a replica of it on the cloud version of Mendeley, which can be synchronized with your desktop version, as well as you can also open it on an Internet Explorer or a web browser. So the only prerequisite is that you should use the same user account at all the places in order to make sure that the library items are synchronized. So once you create a user account, you can then sign in. Okay. So once you sign in, you will be able to see the library items. So the typical method for doing it is, for example, if I go in to mendeley.com, okay, this is what is the web page you get for. You have, you can download, create an account, sign in, or you can also look for the solutions or the support. You can also search for various articles that exist from within the Mendeley. So once you have created, the method to sign in is click on sign in. It'll ask for the user account and the password. So this is my user account. So let me just sign in. So as soon as I sign in, I'm now signing in using a web browser onto the cloud version of Mendeley. So it'll have my name and I can go into the library. Okay. When I look for the library, it'll show all the list of research papers or the library items or for example, the references for the books and all that I've created for. So it accesses the cloud version and shows on a web browser. So this is typically how we can log in to the cloud version of the library. Okay, so that's about this particular interface. And this is to download and to install it. So once you go into the page, you will get a welcome message. You can also search for the articles from the library, and you can also find the various research data. So what typically this means is, if I go back to Mendeley, so you've got something, here wherein you can search for the different articles and all, and it also gives you the option by which you can look for the different data sets which has been uploaded by other researchers, and you have the option by which you can download and then perform some test or to run through some of the tools at your end. Okay, now choosing the reference manager. Okay, so choosing the reference manager. So typically, what do? We collect the different citations as well as full text articles. So full text articles are nothing but what we do is we collect different research papers and then we store them in one particular place. Okay, so we don't have to have multiple things in multiple places, multiple folders and all as part of our study. You can read, annotate, and cite from one place. So typically what this means is, let me show you the interface of, this is the Mendeley desktop. I will go step by step. Okay. So what typically this means about read, annotate, and cite is means what you see here is the icon of PDF. So whenever I have this particular research paper in my library, I can open it. Okay, I can read from within here. I don't need to do it from any other place. So when I read this, if there are certain places, for example, which are relevant for my study, what I typically do is I can highlight it. Okay, I can have some colors in order to highlight this. Okay, so when I come next time, when I open this, I know only this particular line is relevant for my study and I can make use of it. Or it also has an option wherein I can add a note. All this goes into what is known as the annotations. For example, I say, I'm just typing something relevant for my study. Okay, so as soon as I do this, this gets added on to this particular the selection of what I have made as part of this, and it has some annotation. So I can do everything in one place rather than doing it in some other, scribbling on a sheet of paper or on a register. Everything is kept in one place as part of my library. So that's what it means. Read, annotate, and cite from one place. Citation, I will come about it a bit later on. I can also share references with my co-authors. So typically what I do is, for example, I have various library items, and based upon them, I actually create my own folders and all. I will come into how to create and how to do this. So typically I have so many of these. So if I'm using them as part of my study, which I have co-authored with another author, so rather than another author also performing the same activity, I can share these references. I will also show about how do we export and how can we import it into the library. Okay, so that it becomes very easy for these scholars in order to share this information across multiple with other co-authors. I can also access my research across multiple devices. That means I could do it either from my house laptop or my workstation at my workplace. So I can still access it. I don't have to be sitting on only one system in order to access it. I can edit referencing style for publishing in various journals as well as conference. Now, what this means is, as scholars, we also participate in various conferences. Each conference will have a different referencing style to be used in. For journals, it could be different. For conferences, it could be different. So in order to quickly move from one to the other and to change from one style to the other, it's much easier by doing the reference manager. I can share my annotations with collaborators or the wider field. So various advantages, and you can store everything in one place. So rather than looking for multiple sources of information, all is stored in the library of Mendeley. I will also show you where to find these library entries, and where do you find for the place where it stores all these PDF files that you have downloaded as well. So I'll cover it a bit later on, but yeah, this is one of the advantage of using the reference manager. And am I willing to pay, or do I want a free solution? Mendeley is a free academic software. You do not have to pay in order to make use of Mendeley for the references and citations. Okay. Yeah. Somebody had a question. Please go ahead with the question.
Yes, sir. So cases where we should use ETAL, as I seen in some papers, there are more than 3 authors, but have not find proper rule for it.
Okay. If there are more than 3 authors, I will show in the demonstration as well when I come into using the citations in Microsoft Word. So please hold on for a moment. But if you're asking where do you find, okay, I will always suggest you to refer to the APA reference manual that gives the logic or the correct style to be used for whenever you are referencing any of the say research paper with 1, 2, 3 or multiple authors. You could have as high as 25 different authors. And like the examples I gave in, okay, what we could have is the way that it is cited. I'll come into it a bit later on, but typically to tell you, we could have one author, the rule changes, 2 authors, the rule changes, 3 authors, the rule changes. If there are more than 3, again, the rule changes. And also, when do we use this et al? That also you need to know. Okay. Similarly, when you do an in-text citation, when you use, there are 2 types of citations, what we call as an in-text citation as well as end text citation. The rules again changes for each of them again. Similarly here, when you use narrative citation, the rule changes. When you use parenthetical citation, the rule changes. So for each of this, typically what you need to know is how should you be using these citations. So give me some moment. When I come to this particular section, I will explain it. Over and above, if you are still have doubts, you can ask questions or refer to the APA reference manual. Manual contains every intricate details about the way everything has to be cited for. Okay, if I want to use further, complicate based upon what you have asked for, if I have used, say, there are 2 authors, okay, that I'm citing. It could be in year one, it could be in 2 different years, or I could have the same authors who have published 2 different papers in the same year. So year one as well as year one. So 2 different papers. So the citation again changes for each of them. So there are certain norms to be used. Lots of them are taken care by Mendeley by itself in order to cite each of them. So you don't have to worry much about it, but you should know, you should be familiar and aware about how it is done. I will give some examples when we work with citations when we come into that particular section. Okay. Any other questions?
Which app is more accurate for citation?
App. We are not
App,
using
yeah.
any app here. It's not an app. It is a software. Okay.
Yeah.
So this software is meant for citations only, and that's why it's an academic software. So this is very much accurate. But the only variation what it comes in is with an in-text citation. Okay, it's all about how we use narrative and parenthetical citation. So there is nothing as accuracy, not accurate. It's all about the writing style of the authors. Now, if you need more information, what I also have is I do have a lot of information in my website. I can probably share this with you all. Okay, so this is my website wherein you can find a lot of resources related to research primarily. I have one specific for references. Okay, in this, what you could find is, for example, if you look into, using the APA referencing style. Okay, I will go through some of this as well. Some I have already gone through. So typically what we talk about is how do we use them, the next is about the guidelines. Okay, guidelines is when I will be talking about exactly the different formatting rules, what APA suggests for. Now, some typical examples with single author, multiple author, what is parenthetical citation, followed by what is narrative citations, how should you be using them? Okay, I will also explain this when we come into that citation, but this is a good resource that you can always use in for. So let me share this information with you all. Okay. Yeah, and lot of things are being taken care, as I said, by Mendeley. But if you still have any further onto this, you must always refer to the APA publication manual. So this manual is quite comprehensive, including for all different sources that you use for citation as part of your reference page. Okay, any other questions before I move on to the next?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, can we add CSV file directly to the Mendeley?
Can we add what file?
CSV or an Excel format file
into Mendeley?
Yeah, for citation.
Okay. Why do you want to do it? Who has asked the question and what is the purpose for it?
It's been asked on the YouTube platform.
Okay.
No name again.
Okay, no problem. No, we cannot add a CSV file. Now, how do we add the library items is something I will go through. These are the 7 different approaches. So give me 5 minutes. Let me introduce the software Mendeley, about the interface, and then I will come into how do we build. But a simple answer about the type of import exports that what it provides is something that I will cover for a bit later on. So please hold on for a moment about this question. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. How to manage research papers in Mendeley or Google Drive? Because when I download research papers, due to their download name, it becomes hard to identify them without opening the file. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. We will look into this about building the library item and how do we search from within this. Okay. Any other questions?
One is like, which one is better, EndNote or Mendeley?
Okay, this session is about introducing the different references styles, and to introduce you to Mendeley. I will not be doing any comparisons with other tools. I would strongly recommend you to build your own knowledge about in order to compare. That's not the objective of this particular session. If you want to know anything about Mendeley, if you want to know anything related to references and citation, I'm more than happy to answer the questions. Okay, so the first is about the interface. So as soon as you open Mendeley desktop, this is what you see. You may not be getting, if you have installed it only recently, today or in the past few days, and you have not used it, you may not be getting all this. So these are all library items. Okay, I will cover each one of them. So what we see in this, whenever we open Mendeley desktop, is you would see my library, which is in a hierarchical format. So typically it is what you see as part of your Windows Explorer. So for example, if you open Windows Explorer, you have got all these arranged, in C drive, multiple folders, subfolders and all. The same is what is the organization in case of the My Library as well. So at the top, what you see is all documents. So which indicates all the documents which are there as part of the library. So what I have presently is 3,390 documents within my library of Mendeley. Okay, so everything is listed. Then what we have is recently added. In case of recently added, it gives you the date when you have recently added any item to this library. So the last what I added was on March 16 with various such research papers which are listed in the recently read. Okay, so again, the particular library item that we open and read them are all listed out in here in this particular format. So I can always look for, if I want to know which one was the last that I opened and read for all this information. Favorites is something I think all of you understand what favorites are. What you have even in your mobile phones, that you have a particular mobile phone listed as a favorite. Same as what we could do here. If there are some key research papers that you commonly use for and you want to review them. So for example, in my case, I've got 3,390, which is quite huge, to look for. So I can always mark few of them as favorites. How do we do it? I will just confirm in a moment. Needs review is something I have added a particular entry, whether I have done it, downloaded it, or have used some a method in order to perform an import. But either of the approaches I used, as soon as a particular entry has to be confirmed by the author, it gets into new needs review. So out of what I have is 3,390. There are a lot of entries which requires confirmation, some 1,000 plus documents. So this simple method is I look for the information. If I'm happy with all the entries, I review them, and then I click on details are correct, it gets removed from here. For example, I take this particular one. Okay, so it has got some special characters which are non-English, like the one that we see on G, or something on the S. So different text are being used in different languages. So I can review them and then update or modify. If I'm happy with it, then I can say details are correct, by which it will be removed from this. So this only gives an confirmation or an option to the scholar in order to review the different library items. And the next is my publication. So these are all my research papers which I have authored or co-authored with others. I can keep adding on into my library, which will get added into my publications. Unsorted. Okay, what unsorted means is what we can create within the library is create folders, subfolders, subfolders like this, and I can organize all my library items into this. Now, how do you organize them is typically based upon the convenience of a user or a scholar. For example, there are various approaches I've used for, like a demo or all the research papers by a particular author. Or it could be, for example, I'm working one on artificial neural network, or the different books entries that I have, or it could be on, say, brand management. I'm doing something on meta-analysis, so I've got for that. I've got something on CDL, something on cryptocurrency. Okay, like this, I keep creating multiple folders. So if I have any of the library items which are not added to any folder or a subfolder, that would appear as unsorted. Okay, and then all these listing are nothing but what I can create multiple folders within the library item. Now, how do we create folders? Is at the end of it, you will find as create folder. Click this. For example, to create a folder, I will use our today's session. So I say demo SEMS. And I give a date, say 2022-03-26. So today's date, and a folder is created. So you'll find it here on the top with demo, but it has got nothing, just blank. Okay, so that's very easy in order to create folders. I can also create multiple folders or subfolders within a particular folder. If I double click on it, I can edit or press an F2 key in order to edit or make any changes. If I made any mistake or change the name accordingly, I can make changes to it. So that's how we could create a folder. What we see here is, if I choose any one of them, for example, in this particular panel, the first what you see is indicating a star is nothing but favorites. For example, I want to add this particular research paper in my favorites. I just need to click on this. So if I go back to favorites, it is added. Okay, this particular one towards green test. If you want to remove, either I can remove from here or I can remove from here. Either of the approaches are fine. Okay, the next column, what you see is this in green color. It indicates whether I have read or not read this. The third one has got, the third column has got multiple things in here. If I'm making just an entry, in that case, for example, I do not have access to a particular research paper. I just make an entry for it, or a particular book entry or a web page entry. Okay, in that scenario, there will be nothing here. It's so you won't find any icon. The other is, if I have a particular research paper which has been added to my library item, I will get, you'll find, see, there are a lot of them with this symbol of PDF file. So I can simply click on it in order to open. This is in Journal of Management Studies, one of the research papers. Okay, so if I have a research paper added to my library item, it comes in as a PDF. The other one is, something like this. If you get like this, it indicates that the link is broken. So for a particular entry, I can also look in for this based upon the file. Okay, if I have moved the file physically on my hard disk, in that case, I would get this link to be broken. I may need to go back and fix it. The other option, what you would get here is something like, a download button. So this indicates that I have access to this particular research paper, but I have just made an entry for it. I can download it. If I click on this, you see here it starts downloading, and then now it has downloaded the research paper and saved into my hard disk. So the next time when I go in, it as icon gets converted into a PDF file. Like the next one as well, it is something about a systematic review, and I have access to this research paper. I can simply double click and download it. Okay, so that's about the third column what we see. The fourth one is the author. So it lists the author or the authors as part of the particular library entry. When I say library entry, it could be a research paper, it could be a book entry, or a web page, or any secondary data, or it could be a working paper as well. So either of this, so the author of that particular entry is what is listed here. And then the title, for example, what is the title of the research paper or the name of the research paper. Then followed by the year when it was published, in which journal was it published, when was this entry added to the library, the time when it was added. Now what I can do is I can also sort them based upon, say, the authors. If I click on authors column, all this will be sorted based on authors column, or for example, say title or the year or published in either of them. I can also right click on this and choose specifically. For example, when did I read last? If I want this, I can also select this. So there would be an entry into the library item. The column has been added on. When was it last read? So this is something which is user customizable. So the user can actually look in for the information in order to, so if I don't want, I can simply go ahead and say, remove this last read. So so all these fields are something which are configurable. Now, for each of these research paper, what we can see is, as soon as I select a particular library item, I see the details on this right-hand pane. The type of details that we get is, okay, starting from here, the details, type, it's a journal article. If I click on this drop down, it gives you various options. I can also make changes here as well. For example, if I say it is not a journal article, but a book or a book section, then it could be done accordingly. So there are various options in this. I'll go through, some of them as an example. So that the type is a journal article, followed by what is the title? Okay, the title of this research paper, followed by who the authors are. If you remember, I always mentioned that you should, while creating, it should always be the full name should be listed. But when you're actually seeing this in an APA format, the method is different about the way the initials are being used for. Okay, so it lists all the authors, followed by the journal in which it is published. It is Journal of Business Research in the year 2020, volume number, issue, and the pages, and the abstract, followed by the tags, the keywords which are used as part of the research paper, and that's what it has as the author's keyword. Citation key is very useful. If you do not find this, please do enable it, and it's very easy to enable. Or I will show you it in a while. When we go into the options, you can enable it. So if somebody has a question how to enable, please do ask. I will clarify or demonstrate this about the citation key. Citation key becomes very useful whenever we want to cite them in a Word document while creating our manuscript or a thesis. And then what is the type of the work? It's a journal followed by the URL. Okay. So what is again very critical is about this DOI. Okay, the DOI is entered in. For example, in case of books, it will be the ISSN number or SSN numbers and all, which comes relevant. So for each of these, there will be a different set of requirements. I will show you about some of them as well. If it has got a PDF file, then the files will be listed here. That means it will be the physical folder and the name of the file where it is. For example, if I select this, now this is the name of the file. Okay, so I can also add or remove. I can add a file, or I can even, on this cross, and I can remove this file if it is not appropriate or correct. So these are the various things that we could look in for onto the right pane in order to identify the details about each of these entries. And then we can also add notes, and it gives in a hierarchical form for the contents. Okay, so that's about the pane. Then what we also have is to filter. Okay, by default, all is selected. That means all the entries or all the everything is what is being selected for. So I get 3,990 as part of my library. I can also choose based upon a particular author. For example, I choose David Aker. David Aker is the one author who has conceptualized the consumer-based brand equity. Okay, so if I want to find out all the list of research papers related to one particular author as part of my library item, I can easily go ahead and select that. Okay, like this for any of them, I can choose a particular author. It lists down the number of research papers that I have in my library item. Okay, or the other method is I can filter by author keyword, or I can filter by my tags or publications. Sometimes what happens is, whenever I'm submitting to a particular journal, the preference is to have some of the research papers included in my manuscript about that particular journal. For example, this is one, say, Journal of Marketing Theory and Practice. When I'm submitting to this particular journal, I want to know how many research papers do I have as part of my library, which one of them are relevant to my study, and should I cite them or not. So instead of searching somewhere else, this gives me a very quick view in order to find out the number of research papers that I have. So total, I have 16 of them as part of a particular journal. Okay, so I can, based upon the relevance, I can cite this as part of my study. It becomes very, very easy for the scholars in order to find and then use it. So filter by publication is something that typically I normally use in for, or filter by author. So what I will do is I'll go back to the default one rather than choosing all. I will keep it as all for the time being, okay, as the default. Okay. The next, it also has an option by which I can search here. For example, the one that I showed you about why customers use mobile payments. Okay, so I have all these listing based upon the keywords that I've used for. So I've got my paper listed here. Okay, so I can easily go in, and then I can so it gives an option for the scholars in order to also search based upon various criteria. So these criteria could be wherein the search could happen either based on the author's name, it could be the title of the research paper, or the name of the publication, or the year, or the notes. So very, very useful. From within the library item, I can search for all this information. Okay, so this covers about what the interface look is. The other things, I will keep covering them when I come into the multiple sections. Now, what we'll do is we'll go through this slide about how do we build the library item. Now, there are 7 different approaches to build the library item. The first is manually. Okay, manually means I make all the entries manually with hand in order to create this library item, and it is mostly needed for older material. That means if I'm referring to some research paper which was in 1960s, for example, say Diffusion of Innovation, which was published by Rogers in 1968. So I don't have a research paper, but I'm referencing to that particular one about the diffusion of innovation. Then I can easily type in, or any paper that you have, you can always type in manually. That's a first method. Second method is data based transfer. So it is used for bulk export. So typically, whenever we do SLR or meta analysis, we search the different publishers using certain keywords. Or when I say publishers, it could be in Science Direct, it could be in Emerald, or it could be also in, say, Web of Science or Scopus, based upon the access that I have for. When we search for it, and rather than saving them in a particular file, I can directly export all of them into the Mendeley library. I can do it one by one, or I can do it bulk. So both options is what I will demonstrate. Third method is drag and drop. Similar to what you do, you simply drag a particular PDF file and drop it onto the Mendeley library. I'll also show this. What it uses is a metadata. Now, what does metadata mean? Okay, to give you a quick demo, for example, I open any of the files. Okay, for example, my notes. So when you look in for properties, there are various information what you get about here, like the name of the file. Okay, in the details, the title, the subject, tags. So all these are nothing but metadata. Now, whenever we are doing a drag and drop, it actually looks in for the properties of the file and then adds on. Now, what does this properties of file mean is, it requires various options. For example, what each of these entries would need is the type, whether it is a journal article, the name of this journal, the title, the authors, the volume, year info. So all these are nothing but what comes from metadata. The word of caution is, if you have downloaded the research paper or a PDF file from an authentic source, you will get the metadata. But if you have downloaded from another source, okay, I won't go into those details, but if it is not authentic, what authenticity means is, when you go to the publisher website and if you have access to it, you will have access to download that research paper. That is what is an authentic source, which will be complete with the metadata. If you don't do that, you could find some junk characters when you do a drag and drop. And you should be careful about when you do this drag and drop in order to manually review. The fourth option is using a web importer. I will also demonstrate this. So for example, whenever you're searching for some of these research papers, and then you should be able to use the plugin web importer in order to save that information. The fifth option is watch folder. I will demonstrate each one of them. I'm giving a briefing first. So the watch folder is something in which we tell Mendeley to keep watching for a particular folder, and whenever I download a PDF file into that particular folder, it gets added automatically into Mendeley. The sixth option is, I could use an RAS or a BibTeX file. I will also show you about what are the contents of these BibTeX file and the RAS file. It becomes something much easier in order to take backups or interoperable, or to use from one type of software to the other software, which are predominantly supported by an RAS or a BibTeX file. The seventh option is to add a file or a folder. It does have an option by which I can choose either individual file or multiple files to be added on, or I can add the contents of a folder as well as its subfolders into Mendeley. So I will start with demonstration of one by one. Okay, so you all can follow it with me. You can use any of your existing research papers or any of your publisher websites that you have access to in order to work on all these options. So the first option is manually. Okay, now what does it mean manually is, what I would suggest you is, you can look for any information that you already have. For example, I will use my particular one. Say I will use this one. And the second one is BibTeX example. I'll be using these two files as part of this. So participants, you can always refer to this or any other example that you have. Either of the methods could be used in for. Okay, so I'll be using this as an example in order to create a manual entry in Mendeley library. Okay, so this is an extract what I have. So typically the way that we would go ahead is, either you can use file, add entry manually, or from this toolbar, you can choose add entry manually. So either of the approaches you could use. From the drop down list box, identify what is the type of library item. So here it is a journal article. That's what is selected also by default. Under the title, I will just go ahead here and copy and paste this. The title of my research paper. Okay, why customers make mobile payments applying a means and chain approach, and then the authors. Now always remember this part. See here, if you see the authors, that's the way it is given. If I simply do a copy and paste, this is not correct. Okay, if I simply use like this, it takes the complete one as single author. Rather, what you should be doing is, the method for doing it is, as soon as you click, you will see this. You can have last name, comma, the first name. Okay, or you can type in the complete name and then press an enter key. As soon as you press enter key, it understands that the way I have typed is first name, last name without any comma. So it would reformat it as last name and first name. Okay, if you want, I'll quickly do it. One method is, I just use my complete name as Raja Shankaran and press an enter key. As soon as I press an enter key, it reformats. It knows that Shankaran is my last name. It adds a comma followed by my first name. Okay. For the second author, similarly, it is Chakraborty, comma, Shibashish. I press an enter key. So that's how you should enter the authors. Now always remember, do not include only the initials. Otherwise, what would happen is, when we change from one style to the other, some referencing style uses the complete name. In that case, it could be a problem. Always use, whenever you are making an entry, make it a practice that you should use the complete name of the authors, followed by the journal. Okay, the journal is Marketing Intelligence and Planning. I just do a copy and paste here. Okay, it also gives a suggestion based upon the one that I already have. It was published in 2021, followed by volume number is 39, issue number is 1, page number is 109 to 124. Okay, if I have an abstract, I can do a copy and paste any of the tags, okay, or author keywords and all. And then it is also important to make use of the DOI number. So I'll just do a copy and paste of this DOI number in that particular section of DOI and then save. So as soon as I save this, all this information is saved. If I have made any mistake, for example, I can always go back and correct it. For example, I missed out something, or I want to delete something. Okay, I can always go ahead and do this. I can always make these kind of changes here. Okay, so that's the first step what I have shown about the manually building the library item. Now, a very good approach what I would also demonstrate now is, now if I want to get rid of this entry, you can right click on it. You can say, when you say remove from folder, so you should understand what actually happens in, when you say remove from folder, it only removes this entry from the folder, but not from the library. It will still remain in the library. It will remain in all documents when you see it, but it will get into unsorted. So if you want to avoid that, right click and then do remove from folder, delete the documents. So this completely removes it from my library. Okay, so that's one. Now the okay, I'll just undo it. Now the other advantage with the DOI is, very, very useful DOI. One advantage is that, for example, I made some entries or wrong entries. Okay, I'm just arbitrarily making some change here. For example, I missed something or incorrect information I have, but I have the DOI number. As soon as I have the DOI number, I can click on this hourglass. If I click this, it actually goes and looks up for the information, and then it updates my record accordingly. So as soon as I do this, it actually performs the lookup, and you will find that all entries are now updated. Okay, if there are any updates or any wrong entries within my library item, everything gets updated. That's one of the advantages. The other advantage is, if I want to add entry manually, and if I have this DOI number, I just need to enter it and then say, I need to do this lookup as well. Okay. Now, as soon as I do this lookup, you'll find everything is updated. So it's very, very easy and simple in order to update all this item with a DOI number in case of the vendor. Okay. So that's about the first one. The next is, if I want to demonstrate to you about the drag and drop, okay, what I would do is I'll choose any one of them. Okay, say this particular research paper. So I simply drag and then drop it here. So when I do this drag and drop, the file gets added. Remember, it uses the metadata. If I have downloaded from an authentic source, all the information that you get here would be all correct. Otherwise, it will be all junk characters. So you need to be very, very careful whenever you do this drag and drop. Though it is very easy, something what we typically do in case of Windows environment, you can simply drag and drop a particular file in order to update it quickly. So it's very, very easy for doing this information. Okay, I'll just delete this document. The next is I can add a particular file. It is similar to the drag and drop. If I choose add a file, okay, for example, I get into my particular folder, say somewhere where I have few of my research papers. Say I choose something related to the latent growth model. LGM stands for the latent growth model. I have few research papers associated with it. I can choose a particular file or multiple files. I can use shift key for multiple file selection, or I can choose a file and alternate files with the control key and mouse key and then choose open. So it now adds two of the files that I have selected for. Okay, and it gives in all this information with all the details listed here, including its DOI number and the file what it has. Okay, all this information is now added quickly into Mendeley Live. In order to add a particular folder, method is the same. Okay, if I choose a particular folder, so for example, if I go in the place where I have my research papers, say I want to upload everything which is related to, say, ANN. Okay, it also has subfolders, or it also has something like this, multiple subfolders. So it gives an option whether I should add only the contents of this particular folder or this subfolder as well by selecting this checkbox. I'm not doing it now because my each of the folder has got multiple files. So that's the method in order to. So once you make a selection, click on OK, it will upload everything onto the library. Okay, so what I have covered is number 1, number 3, as well as number 7. These 3 I have covered. Okay. In case there are any questions, I can go ahead and answer them.
Yeah, so the previous questions were like, do we add a citation of original author also, or we only cite the author whose paper we are reading?
No. See, it's not what we read or the original author doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is the research paper that you are referring to as part of your manuscript is what you need to cite, irrespective of whether you are reading a research paper. From that research paper, they have reference to something else and something else beyond that. It doesn't matter. So what you need to keep in mind is, it is again the way that you are writing or the style that you're adapting in order to write your research paper. So whatever that you want to refer to or quote is what you need to cite. Okay. The next question.
While writing the statement of any reference in the research paper, should we change it, or it should be as it was in the source journal?
Oh, then that is plagiarized. Any sentence you copy is plagiarized. Never ever do that. Your manuscript will be rejected outright. It should always be paraphrased or write in your own words. You can always refer to that, and then you should give adequate credit to the authors by citing them, but never copy from any source. Anything, it could be a website, it could be a research paper, it could be a working paper, it could be a book as well. Never ever do any copy paste. That's the, should I say, disadvantage with digital environment. We have got access to so much of information. Yeah.
There is a similar, I guess. Can we copy and paste a library from one account to another?
Yeah. I will show some of this as a demo as well, wherein you can do an import export. So typically when we do an export, we can save it in an RIS file or a BibTeX file. I will also show that. And then it can be imported into another author's library.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we rename the paper for easy identification in Mendeley?
What do you mean by rename in Mendeley?
You just type rename the paper for easy identification.
There is nothing as rename the paper in Mendeley. Okay, it's the PDF file that you have. So then you can give a name for the PDF file. But whenever you add any of the research papers, it has got a particular option. Okay, I will cover it here since you have asked for. It has got the file organizer. Let me repeat. What you do is go to tools, under the options. You've got this second tab page is file organizer. This file organizer indicates where the PDF files that you have included in library item, the physical folder where it should be saved. Okay, it has gone into the default installation folder of Mendeley desktop. So if I open this folder, all these are listed here. Okay, all my files that I've seen are actually listed here. Now, how do I organize them? Mendeley also gives this this option or information to the user. If I don't choose any other options, everything will be stored only in this one particular folder. There are other options. For example, you can sort the files into subfolders. It will create various subfolders based upon year and title. You can also pick and choose which one you want. For example, title followed by year, you can do that. All these, some changes you could always do. Or the authors and journals. Okay, it gives an example as this is how it will be saved. Otherwise, you could also rename the document. How do you rename them? Based upon, you can always pick and choose about which ones you want. Okay, for example, it should be based upon, say, the author and the year. You could do that. Okay, I think this is what somebody has asked for if you want to save the file in a particular name. Or you want to have author, year followed by the title as well. You could do that. So it's all. So how does it know what is the author name, year, and the title? It actually picks up from the entry. So this is something which is configurable by the user, what are unused. So if you want to use, for example, author followed by the year, it gives an example as well. So this is the file name what it will use in order to save this file on the physical folder whenever you download or create an item in library. Should it be hyphen separated? Should it be underscore, a comma, or a period separated? Even that can be selected. For example, it should be an underscore. So you'll get author underscore title. If you want to use the year as well, for example, author followed by year, then the title that could be used it for. Okay, so it's something which is configurable by the user that they can always organize the way that the files should be stored. I normally don't, but if you want, you can always use this option. So what I was demonstrating is when you go under the tools, options, under the file organizer, this is where you see all of this. By default, it goes into this installation folder. You can open this folder. So this is the default one. So I normally don't organize separately, but whenever I download, I have organized them like this. So I don't have to separately do it, but the option is available with the users. For example, you can also create the files which should be stored in separate subfolders. So what it uses is something like this under the Mendeley desktop, author and journal. This is again user configurable. For example, I want author followed by the year. I can do that as well. So I can pick and choose amongst these the way that it should be saved. The other is apart from the subfolders, the next is the document by itself. I can make a selection like author followed by the year, or I can say the journal as well. Okay, so it gives an example here, author dash year dash journal. If I don't want to use hyphen or a dash, say I want to use underscore, I can always change it and then click on apply. So this is what will be used whenever you add a particular item in library. It will store with this particular file name in the physical folder of the installation. Okay, yeah.
It's Yinka from Babcock University, Nigeria. He's asking like, dear professor, where I have a mix of library resources, say articles on public expenditure and those on FDI mixed together in the Mendeley library, how am I able to separate them into different folders in the library?
Okay, that's fine. So what you can do is, let me share my screen. So what you can do is you can create multiple folders here. And then you can, once you have made an entry, for example, I created another one like this. So if I want to move from one to the other, say this particular, based upon the two different domains that you talked about, say I've got this one, which I don't want in this, I can simply drag and drop and move it to the other one. So it creates an entry here. So it's very simple. You can just move it along multiple. You can create multiple folders and then move from one place to the other. you can arrange. It's very good option. Okay, good that you asked this. So rather than putting everything in the main or a single folder, you should normally organize it based upon the choice of a scholar. Like I showed some of the examples wherein I have organized it based upon the domain, the theory. Some could be on statistics, some could be on the type of research that I'm doing, say meta-analysis, SLRs, and multiple things. So you should typically organize it. It's a very good practice.
So Nitigya Kumar is asking, if I quote a particular sentence or information from one study, which was itself quoted from another study, then which study should I need to put in the reference, new or the original one?
Okay, I would typically suggest you to join another session which is related to research paper writing. Okay, but ideally, what you should do is I'll give you in a very quick short form. Okay. Ideally, what you should do is whenever you are citing, there are two approaches for doing it. One, you can cite only the original author. Second option is both. That means the one that you have referred to and the one that he or she has referred to. It is typically based upon the writing style of the authors. Okay.
Okay, last similar question for like plagiarism. If I have downloaded any research paper from sci-fi domains, which is not legal to download, will it create any problem in Mendeley?
Let us not talk about
Yeah.
those. I will not encourage and discuss about any of this. That's why I said, if you have not downloaded from an authorized source, you could have problems. So I will only restrict at this stage. Okay, we are in this public forum and talking with multi countries, multiple things. I would not encourage anybody to use other. I will not be discussing about any other unauthorized forums as part of this session. Yeah. Okay. Now the next option, I think I've covered manually. I've covered drag and drop and add files and folders. Okay. Next, what we'll do is we'll look into web importer. In order to do this web importer, what you do is, okay, I'll give some simple examples. Okay, like the one that I went into Google Scholar. I typed this. You'll find a lot of these from the search results. It gives you an option whether you've got the PDF file that you can download or not. Okay. Similarly, is what you get from different publisher websites. So I will go into my. Okay. Before I do this, let me give you a quick one. Say, for example, I go into Emerald. I search for some concept in which I want to have the research paper. Say I choose, which one should I choose? Anything, say strategic management. Okay. It gives me lots of these search results. Now here it says the first one is 1983 of strategic operational approach to management. It gives me a PDF file. When I select this, it says, okay, it gives me this information, but it does not give me any option to download this PDF file. Hence, I do not have access to this. It says you should access via institution or other option. Now, all these are for every such websites, when I talk about these publishers are like Emerald, Taylor and Francis, Elsevier or Science Direct, okay, Wiley. These are all, big publishing houses. It is done either via subscription or per individual research paper wise. Okay, so if I want to access this, let me go ahead and okay, first let me demonstrate with how do we add this, and then I will get into with a PDF file. Okay, so if you want to add this, for which I do not have an access, for example, how do I add this entry into the Mendeley library? For that, I can use this web importer. As part of the prerequisites, one of the link which was sent across to you was to install the web importer as well. So when you select this web importer, use the same ID that you have used to log in. Okay, then it actually gives in the results here. Now it shows. So today what it did was 2022-03. Okay, let me choose this particular folder in which I want to add this. Okay, I can choose a particular folder where I want to add this particular entry. Otherwise, by default, it will go to my library. So if I want this to add this, I simply select this. I've searched for only one. Based upon the search results, I went into one particular website where I want to add this research paper. I select this and click on add. Okay, it gives a confirmation that reference has been added. Okay. Now, if I go back, either I can do it from here. I think it was, yeah, it was here. So I'll just do a synchronize. Okay, I'm doing it quickly so that I can verify and validate while we are demonstrating it. Otherwise, the synchronization happens between the Mendeley cloud version and the desktop. Where is it? Let me go back and log into Mendeley here under the library. Let me quickly verify this. Yeah, under the demos, I think it was. I don't know which one did I choose to. Anyway, it's here. Okay, if I go back into this, it was strategic operational approach to management. Factors affecting. No, it didn't. Oh, it says it has. Let me go back and check what it has done. Is it actually added or industrial product analysis? No, these are the. Oh yeah, sorry. Here it is. I was searching at a different. So it's all added at almost the same time. Okay, so that's why I was not able to find this. See, this is the one Skipton. If I go back here, the author is MD Skipton under the management, which is published in Management Research News. Okay, so that's what I find here. This one, Skipton, the fifth one in this. The strategic operational approach to management at 3:40 p.m. Okay, the one which I've added. If I just open this, I can. This is the cloud version. What I'm looking in for. Okay, so I can see all the entries with no PDF file. Okay, and I can also synchronize by clicking on this particular one, wherein it is synchronized the cloud version with my Mendeley desktop. So that's the entry what it has made. And similarly, what I could also do is I can. I will then show you about after adding or logging on to it. Okay, I've added multiple ones together into this. Okay, so the next step is if you want to access this, say this second one, I will demonstrate with the second search result. Okay, for which again I do not have access to. Or if I look in for, okay, something, you'll find that none of them I have access to. Okay, it always talks about to view the access option. Now, if I have an access, how would I add this? If I go back to my login as part of my IM one, I would look for to log in under the Emerald. And what I did, this search option was based on strategic management. So I'll use the same search results. Gives me all these options. Okay, again, it has got strategic operational approach for which I do not have access to, but there are many more for which I have access. For example, it says content available. I can always open this PDF file. Okay, in order to validate, yes, I have. Okay, now with this search result, I have selected how many. I think by default it is 10 per page. So if you want to add them, okay, how should I do it? I go into this. I simply need to click on this web importer. It actually reads this particular web page. It shows all the listing here. Now, I do not want all of them to be added. We can choose which one I want. For example, the one that I showed was for the one that I have access to. I think it was, I forgot which one I selected. Yeah, the second one. Okay, strategic housing management something. Okay, so I could strategic housing management in an asset, comprehensive strategic response, thinking, social media, global, yeah, an asset. Okay, for example, this, or it actually looks for, we can choose which one I want by making a selection here. And then I could then select a particular folder in which I want this to be added. I can say add, or I can do multiple ones that I can add on as well. So if I go back and view the library, it will, okay, it'll give me a listing of the one which has been added now at 3:45, the strategic housing management and asset management. Okay. Let me make another one for which I should be having a lot of access to. Say if I choose something based upon, say, mobile banking, I'm getting a lot of these results with the PDF files and access to. If I go back here, okay, it again checks for them. So based upon my access rights, it will actually add on. For example, this one, if I say this particular one, I select this, or say, okay, I'll choose one of them and I select it into this demo. It should be this one, add. I've got so many folders I add on one and I keep checking on the other one. Okay, then if I go back to my library to view this, Okay, so what you will also find here is it gives a tick mark for the PDF. That means now PDF is also included as part of the library. So I can verify this. Okay, this is a particular one. You'll find it has got the drop down one. It's saying that PDF file is available for download. That means I have an access to this particular entry and I can also download this. So if I go back into my Mendeley desktop, let me quickly refresh this. Did I save into, I don't know, one of this? Yeah, okay. See here, it's showing as a drop down. Okay, that means I have access to this PDF file. I just need to click on this, it will download it now. Okay, you'll find it is being downloaded, and I now have downloaded this paper. And it has also made an entry as well in my library. Now it gives in something like whether the details are correct or not. When I physically go and verify it, I find the volume number, issue number is missing. Okay, again, it is based upon the metadata. I can search for by simply looking into the DOI. Okay, there are two approaches. One is to use the DOI, or the second approach is selecting from here. It has got the view research catalog. Okay, either of the approaches I could use for in order to search for further information. So once I'm happy with this, I can go ahead and say the details are correct. Or if I'm not, I can go into, validating this. The method I could use it, I can even open this file. I can see what type of data it is. So it is in 2021 November. Okay, so it does have a DOI number, but it doesn't have any page numbers and all. So that means it is still not into the publication date what it has got. So it should be an in press. That's why the volume number and the issue number is missing. If it was accepted in November 21, but it is not yet published. So some of the journals have got their own queue in order to do this. So I can also search based upon the DOI number. What it will give in is in which particular stage actually this could be. Okay. So accordingly, I can then validate. It only says article publication date, but not the date when it was published. So it could be still in a queue. We are just in March. Some take 2 months, some can take almost 6 to 8 months as well, based upon the number of journals, number of articles that they have to be published in that particular journal. Okay. So that's how we could add a particular entry as well as a PDF file based upon the search criteria that we give with the web import. The next is I will cover this using RAS or BibTeX file. Okay. Now, what is this BibTeX file? I have given a particular. I have shared it in the chat box. This BibTeX file. If you all can open that, okay, you should open it with a notepad. Okay, I'll quickly explain. You should not be making any changes to it. A BibTeX file typically follows this particular format. It starts with an ampersand. That means it has got its own grammar or the syntax the way it is created. Followed ampersand, followed by a journal article. So it says article. Within this curly braces, opening and the end curly braces, it then defines all of this. So this is nothing but the citation key followed by the author, the DOI, journal, number, title, the volume, and the year. So it will have many more like this. So it's a text file which can be opened and edited with the text file. In order to make an entry of this in a library, there are two approaches. One approach is simply do a drag and drop for this BibTeX. The second approach is you can also perform something. What it has is I can import as a BibTeX file or an EndNote or an RAS file. So in order to do this import BibTeX file, select this particular folder and the file name. Okay, so it is a BibTeX example. What I have, select this and choose open. It has got only one entry. Okay, when you have multiple entries, even all this can be used. This is how you could share the information from what has been updated from one author to the other authors by simply creating this BibTeX file. Now, how do you create this BibTeX file also? I will explain it in a moment. Okay, so this is exactly based upon the entries what we have in this BibTeX file. If I open it with a notepad, you will find the title is Factors Impacting Mobile Banking in India, and that's what it is. Okay, followed by the volume. It says it is ahead of print 2021, and this is the journal IM Code Society and Management Review. So you'll find all of this information listed exactly based upon what you have as part of your the BibTeX file. Okay. So that's to add a BibTeX file. The next, we will move on to the, so I've covered manually, I've covered drag and drop, web importer, number 6 and number 7. Number 2 and number 5 are left. I will cover number 2 now, about the database transfer. So this is all about Scopus, Science Direct or Web of Science whenever we want to do a bulk export. So the method to do is, you should have access to the Web of Science or the, for example, if I show you with this one as Scopus. Okay. Say in the Scopus database, I search for some of these documents. I use this something similar, say mobile payments. Okay. I search for this. It gives me a lot of these results. As I said, you should have access to this Scopus in order to search and then make use of it accordingly to add them in mentally. So it gives me a lot of these results. I can also use some intelligent search by using and or brackets as well as double quotes and all. So for all of this, I can choose in order to perform, I can choose, say, all of them. I can export it. I can export into Mendeley. It gives me this option to directly import into Mendeley. I can use that, or I can save it in an RAS format or a BibTeX format. With this, then I can then perform an import into Mendeley. If I, for example, save it in an RAS or a BibTeX form, okay, or I can directly use it into doing it in Mendeley. Now this is quite huge, so let me show a quick demo with a BibTeX. Okay, so in BibTeX I can also pick and choose what sort of information do I want. Say all the citation, bibliographic I want, abstract also I want, funding and other information I don't. Okay, so with this then once I have made these selections, I can choose export. So it is it's only first 2000 documents. I say export. So I will save it into that particular folder of what we are using it today. Yeah, under the SEMS mainly workshop. I give it, say, Scopus followed by 2022-03-26. I save this. If I go back to this particular folder, oh, it's still downloading. Okay, it's 4.8 MB in size. I think now it is done. So if I go to this, okay, it's a BibTeX file. Right click, I can directly put in desktop, Mendeley desktop, but I'm opening it with a notepad. Since it's quite a huge file, you'll find there are a lot of entries into this now based upon the selections that we have made. The first one is an article followed by, okay, the next one is here. Okay, so like this, you'll find you can do this bulk upload into Mendeley. So it runs into, I think there are 2000 entries what it has. Now the time when it will be useful is when we do, say for example, SLR or a meta-analysis, we have our search criteria listed here. And based upon that, we choose the type of documents which should be downloaded. So in this, I've just selected only as mobile payments. I can make additional search condition. For example, what I could do is I can say it should be mobile payments, or I can use digital payments. Okay, I can use all this, search condition, doing an intelligent search. If I want to restrict or only for those which uses a particular model, AUT, I can do that and then search. So it's all about the scope of your study that you can define with this search key. So what I had earlier was more than 3000. Now it is limited to 75 documents as part of the results. So you must always use this intelligent search whenever you want to restrict the search based upon your scope of the study. So it gives only these 75. Now I can easily make use of this in order to download this. Otherwise, if it is 3500 or 4000, in order to review each one of them for your systematic literature review or meta-analysis also is a mammoth task. So be very, very, focused, have a focused approach whenever you use this search. Okay. So the method is exactly the same. In order to add this, I just need to say file. I can perform an import BibTeX file. I just need to choose that particular one, which is the Scopus, and everything gets added. I'm not doing it now because there are something around 2000 entries, if I'm right, which was saved as part of this file. So I'll just do a cancel, but this is the method in order to upload or bulk upload from the search results into Mendeley. Okay. The last option is using the watch folder. Now, the method to use the watch folder is I can create a particular folder and tell Mendeley to watch it. For example, I create one in the desktop. I name it as say demo for SEMS 2022-03-26. So this is the folder what I've created now in my desktop. Now I will tell Mendeley that it should watch this folder. That means whenever I save any new research paper in this folder, it should get automatically added to Mendeley. So in order to do that, under the tools options, what you get is a third tab page as watch folder. You can look for which particular folder should be watched. So I created something under the desktop. Under the desktop, I selected, let me select this one, the one that I created now as demo SEMS and today's date. So once done, I choose apply and okay. Now, okay, the last added was at 3:40. And if I go back to this folder, it is empty as of now, no contents. I go back to, so typically what we do is we keep searching for the research papers. For example, I go into Science Direct. I search for something with, say, mobile, say, marketing analytics. I'll choose the very first one, which is in Journal of Business Research on 6th of December 21. I'll download this PDF file. So let me download this and save it in the under the desktop, the same folder. So I give it a name as say LIANG 2021, which is for marketing analytics, and save this PDF file. I close this. I go back to the folder. This is now downloaded. If I go back to Mendeley desktop, you'll find Liang is added, firm performance, which is added now. Okay, so that's how we could quickly add. If I open it, this is what the file is. So that's how we could specify a particular folder to be watched by Mendeley. And whenever we download any research paper into that particular folder, it gets added automatically into Mendeley. So I'll go back and uncheck it so that I've used it only for demo purposes. I'll just uncheck it and say okay. Okay, so I've covered all the methods for building the library. So now the next is about using the citation plugin and including in Microsoft Word. So let me cover the in-text and end-text citations. So first what we will do is we'll use APA style. Let me go back and change it to APA. Okay, so for the participants, what you should have is you should have, if you're using the older version of Microsoft Word, when I say older version, 2000 before 2016, in that case, you should find this under the references tab page. Whenever you install the Microsoft Word plugin, it should appear the Mendeley Citomatic under the references tab page. If you're using the newer version, there are a couple of steps you need to do. I'll quickly show you about what I have is this 2019 version. Now in this, if you go into the references, you may not find it. Okay, so typically what we use, either use Mendeley Cite, which is in the Mendeley reference manager, or you can use the same plugin. For that, what you need to do is, that is with the desktop. For that, you go into the options. Under the options, go in for add-ins, select Word add-ins, click on Go. You should find this Mendeley 1.19.8. Select this, choose OK, enable the content. So as soon as you do it, you should be able to find this here. Okay, the Mendeley Citomatic. This is one additional step to be done if you want to use the Mendeley desktop as part of Word 2019. Okay, if you want me to repeat or you want the steps, please do let me know. I do have all this listed as part of my website. You could also make use of this. Okay. If Microsoft Word plugin is not appearing, then what should you do? Exactly the same what I demonstrated now is listed here. Yeah. Okay. So this is the exact steps that you need to follow if in case you're using the later version of Microsoft Word like 2016 and 2019 with Mendeley desktop. Okay. If you need any more information, lot of things are included as part of my website. You can feel free to make use of it. Okay. Now let me go through how do we cite them in Mendeley. So the first thing is I'll just type something. I'm just using it only for demo purposes. Say the various methods that we could use for. First, I will demonstrate with an in-text citation. What we do is when we write a particular sentence, say the author identified the variables to be used and found it. I am just typing something arbitrarily. Okay. So whenever we do this as part of our manuscript, the different approaches we use to cite is either I can cite at the beginning of the sentence, I can cite anywhere in the middle, or I can cite at the end of the sentence. Okay. Now, which one should I use is typically the writing style of the author. Okay. So either I use it here or I use it here. So this is the approach that is used by the authors based upon the way that they frame a particular sentence. So in order to cite them, the method is, okay, if you want to have at the beginning, I just place the cursor here, click on insert citation. So here either you can search by the author, the title, or the year in my library. Suppose I just say Shankaran 2020 and select OK. So this research paper is now cited. The next is I'll quickly show about the end text citation as well, which is also known as references or a bibliography section. So the way that you could do is, now this step has to be done once for your document. So once you have the section defined, click on insert bibliography. So anything that you cited as part of your document will now be included in this bibliography with a complete citation. Now you will find it, since I've selected the APA style, it is exactly the way that I demonstrated, with the author's last name followed by the initials of the first author with an ampersand followed by the second author, the year, the title of the paper, and all. Now, if you want to cite at the middle, for example, the method is again similar. So insert citation. Now I choose another paper. I choose, say, a second paper. I'm citing two authors now. Rather than one, I'm citing two authors. Okay. Now, as soon as I do it, you will find that it is now added in the references section as well for both the authors. Similarly, to add at the end, the method is same. You place your cursor here and insert citation. Say I just choose any one of them, and say I choose this particular one. I can choose more papers. Okay. I'm just choosing arbitrarily. Okay, these are the three papers. Now, this is typically the way that it should be cited in here. Now, the reason I'm showing it like this is, what are the parenthetical and the narrative citation? So typically what it means is, if I take you back to my website, so it says the way that parenthetical citation should be, cite the last author's name of the last name of the author. It should be in the author and the date should be separated by a comma, something like this. So what typically this means in terms of the parenthetical citation, that means it is within the parenthesis. Okay, so that's what typically this one is. This is a parenthetical citation. Okay, let me put it separate. So this is what is a parenthetical citation. So that means within the parenthesis, the authors are cited. If it is one, multiple authors, two authors, more than two authors, the way that it will be cited for. For example, what you see here, it is more than two authors. That's why et al. Has come in. But all of them are within the parenthesis. That's why it is known as parenthetical citation. The next is narrative citation. The way the narrative citation should be is, now if I add something like this, okay, I'll just do a copy and paste. The author, instead of the author, I'll just say identified. We typically use like this, we cite and then say identified the various variables to be used. Okay, something like this. Now, if I do like this, this is incorrect. The reason is the way APA uses in order to cite this should not be listed like this. It should be ampersand should change to and, the bracket should be removed and only the year should be in brackets. And as soon as I move the cursor out of this, it indicates whether I want to keep the citation. That means I have manually edited this. Should I keep it or not? If I say keep manual edit, it will then keep it here. So this is the correct approach of doing the narrative citation when I use it as part of my sentence. So we have to be very clear about the way that it is used for. If I use something like this would be an incorrect approach. Okay. If I say author or authors followed by, then I give the citations, this is fine. Okay. So that's the way we use an in-text citation. This is typically how we would cite it. Now, the other thing is, how do you know that this is what has been used by Mendeley? As soon as you click on any of these citations that you have included here, you'll find it is grayed. Okay, that indicates it is something which is coming from Mendeley. So I will not recommend you to do this, but I'm just showing it to you. When you do this right click and toggle fields, it actually creates all these quotes as part of it. These are nothing but the way the Mendeley communicates with Microsoft Word using API or the application programming interface. You must not edit any of this. So I just showed it for the demo purposes. So if you are, for example, doing a copy and paste the way that I did, make sure that you completely copy it. For example, if I miss on any of this, it will simply be a text. You'll be wondering what is happening. For example, this is just a text. It should be copied in complete if you're doing any copy paste. So don't make that sort of mistake. Just a word of caution. Okay. Now, based upon all the entries that I have made, it has created these references. How many do you have? Some 6, 7 of them. Okay. Now, changing from one style to the other, how should it be done? It's very easy. Under the style drop down, what we have is APA 7th edition. If I want to change it to Harvard style, I simply have to select it, download that particular style, and then select it. Now, how do we download? I'll just cover in a moment. So you may not find many of them, but I will show you how to use it. Okay. First, I'll demonstrate about selecting them. Then I will come into how do we download or install a particular citation style in Mendeley. So choose from one to the other. Now, as soon as I do it, you'll see that a lot of changes have happened. It is now within double quotes. Okay. So the volume number, it has VOL with PP and all. So with just one click of a button, we can always change from one style to the other. And similarly, there are some which uses, you see, this is another style for European Management Journal. IEEE uses numbered style. Okay. So the way the first occurrence within the document is what is considered as 1 followed by 2. Whereas in case of APS type, it is organized alphabetically, irrespective of the position where it was added on. Okay, so you'll find this here, number 1, and what does number 1 refer to? Something like this. So it is with Mendeley, it is much easier to change from one style to the other based upon the requirements of the user. So for example, this is the third one. Okay. The citation styles are totally different. It has got this, instead of those square brackets in the reference, it has got 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot and all. So with each one of them, it would ideally change. So you need to comply with the requirements of the different journals in order to find what it should be. I'll go back to APA style. Now, how do you know which one to use for? It is typically what you need to do is go to the journal's website. For example, if I choose Journal of Retailing and Consumer Service, it is JRCS. Each of these journals will have something known as Guide for Authors. Okay? Even if you go to that particular journal homepage, you should find for Guide for Authors. So in this, you can always refer to the style to be used. So it says for the referencing and formatting requirements, peer review. Okay, let me go search for this. Okay, style. So it says it does support the different CSS styles, the citation style language. Okay, yeah, here you go, the reference style. So here it shows about the reference style, what it uses as part of this particular journal. So rather than looking into for each of them and then complying to this, I will show you some easier method in order to use it. Okay. So this is for Journal of Retailing and Consumer Studies. Okay. So this is all about in-text citation. I have covered both the This is the parenthetical citation followed by narrative citation as well as the in-text citation. Now, coming into how do we add these citation styles? If I go back to Mendeley desktop, okay, under the view option, select the citation style. This indicates about the various citation styles which are installed. Click on more styles. It opens up a particular tab page. It will show you the different citation styles which are already installed as part of. That means you have installed in this particular desktop. You can also get more styles. For example, what I'll do is I'll just delete, uninstall, and then come back and install for the demo purposes. Okay. This blue book is used for law. Similarly, Chicago American Sociological, there are n number of such citation styles which exist for. Okay. So I will quickly uninstall some of them and then come back and demonstrate it about how do we install it. Okay. I think this should be fine. Now, if I go into some that I uninstalled it, the way to get more styles is I can simply type for it. For example, decision support. I can see that journal name of the journal, decision support systems. I just click on install. Okay. Now it does the installation of that citation style to be used in this particular journal of decision support system. It's an A-star journal in ABDC rank. Or if the style is provided as a CSL, I can simply use the URL in order to download that particular style and install it. How to verify? I can go here and choose whether it has, it has the decision support systems, which is installed. I can say use this style. So what I could do is go back to my Word document. I can say more styles. Under this, if I want to choose a particular one, which I've just installed in, say DSS, I say use this style, done. In that case, I will get this under this drop-down list box. So DSS. DSS also uses the numbered citation style. Okay, so that's the method in order to search for a citation style and install in Mendeley, and also to use it here. I can also swap from one to the other. Okay, so that covers about the citation style. Any questions on citation style before I move on further?
Yes, sir. So how we do citations with number?
I just shown it with the numbered citation style.
Yes, sir.
I have selected decision support sciences, IEEE. So multiple citation style exist for which are the numbered citation style. So you need to choose that particular journal, what it uses for, or the type of citation. Like for example, decision support sciences is the name of the journal which uses that particular citation style, or IEEE. IEEE uses numbered citation style, and that's how you could select it. So if it is not already installed, I've shown you the method to install it as well.
So there is one more question. Sir, explain the difference between research prominent citation and author prominent.
This is a referencing style workshop. I don't want to combine multiple other things as part of it. I know research is quite huge. We can't cover everything in 2 hours time.
Yes.
So let's focus on referencing and citations and how to use it, use the Mendeley. Yeah. And if we talk about journals, and there are so many things that we could talk about from the research paper writing. That's for another workshop. Let me put it this way. Yeah. Any other questions?
Sir, it is true that a journal is not substantial to be included in references since it is not scientific. Is it true?
Journal to be authentic. That means the way by which you use your user accounts in order to download the research papers or to see the research papers from the publisher's website rather than using an unauthorized place. What do you mean by journal is not substantial?
Yes, sir. I actually wanted to ask how substantial can we include journal writings into our research or even in our dissertation, because I'm a little bit confused because some of I don't know, some of my colleagues told me that using journal is not that substantial. It's not that very concrete when you try to use them as your references or part of your citation. So I'm a bit confused about it. So sometimes I'm very hesitant if I'm gonna include journal research in my studies.
Okay. If you mean by substantial, There are different categorization of journals. Which domain are you from, Kenneth?
I'm actually dealing, sir, with education.
Education. Okay, I'll give you an example from management field. I don't know in education what could be the different categorization.
Yeah, we do
In
have
management,
educational management, sir.
the kind of categorization we have is the way that the journals are identified. I will put it in two different categories. One is good, and second is not good journals. Okay, not good journals are all predatory journals. Um, so the good journals are categorized as ABDC journals, which are which are A star, A, B, and C. ABDC stands for Australian Business Deans Council. They publish this list once every 3 years with the categorization of journals. So if it's a very good journal, it will be an A star journal. Then comes A, then B, and C. Anything which is not within this category is something that, as a research scholar, you should avoid them. So if you're submitting to a journal, a good journal, which is an ABDC category journal, and if you refer to a journal which is not ABDC, then your paper will not be accepted. It's something which will not be considered to be a scholarly article that you're using it. So your citations and references should also be from good journals. So the categorization equivalent for an ABDC is also known as ABS. ABS is in UK. The UK governing body has categorized it as ABS 1, 2, and 3. So you should ideally look for these. If you want to know how to find them, it is there in my website. You can always look for the information to download the listing of these. Okay. So avoid predatory journals and non-good journals to be cited as part of your research paper. Never base your study or your research on not good journals.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Sorry, just a follow-up question.
Sure.
Since that we are now dealing actually with the online, we cannot go to the library, we cannot go to the universities as of the moment to actually find some research. We could deal with the online thing, and there are also some websites. How can we use website in terms of references? Are we gonna follow the same format, just what you did, or are we gonna include also the www dot something
Oh, the
website?
website. To cite a website in research paper, is it? Are you asking about how to cite a how to cite a website in research paper?
Yes, sir. How are we gonna
Okay.
how we
Okay,
gonna
I'll
write
quickly
it?
demonstrate that to you. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so let's pick up any example. In fact, I already have lots of them. What I have done is I've created one only for these web pages, one folder for web pages. Okay, which part of the country are you from? Are you from India or abroad?
I'm currently, sir, in the Philippines.
Oh, in Philippines. Okay, so I don't know which one are the authentic websites and all that you use. For example, you've got a central bank. In India, it is known as an RBI, Reserve Bank of India. I think in Philippines, you should have some central bank. Okay, so if you want to refer to that, or say something as say IBEF, okay, or any such secondary data that you could use for in order to cite them, you could easily make use of it. The way to first is to make an entry. Okay, is under the type, choose it to be a web page. Okay, till now I was demonstrating as journal article. So wherever you want to cite a web page, make sure that you choose this type to be a web page. Specify what is the title of that web page. If you have the authors, indicate them. An author could be the organization or an individual. For example, if I have my own blog that I publish it, then it becomes an individual. If it is an organization which has published it that you are referring to, indicate that to be the author. The year, okay, the pages and all may not be relevant. Now, what is critical here is the date when it was accessed. This is very, very critical as far as the APA referencing style is concerned, because see what this indicates is on 3rd of March, I have accessed this. Various web pages can move from one location to the other. If, for example, I'm having a web server in my company, I reorganize it. So that could change. Hence, the date access is very, very critical. Number one. Second, then the URL has to be identified. Once this entry is done, what you do is go and cite it. Minus this, I'll just quickly copy it. So to cite it, method is same. Insert citation. Okay, this is the report. Okay, so say, for example, what you say is, say the industry something. Okay, metrics was 50%. So I arbitrarily typing it. So that's how you could cite it. Okay, and in the references you would find it here. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. So what should the maximum number citation in single paper?
I think I already mentioned this earlier when we were during the beginning of this particular workshop. I don't know if you missed it. There are no hard and fast rule with respect to number of references or citations to be used in a research paper. It typically depends upon the type of research that you are doing. For example, if you're doing a qualitative study versus quantitative study, it will vary. If you're doing an empirical study versus systematic literature review versus meta-analysis, again, it will vary. How many, say if you're using a quantitative study with a conceptual model, the number of hypotheses you have, how extensive your study is, again, that would vary. So some journals have got limitations wherein you submit your manuscript with 6,000 words. In some, it could go up to 12,000 words. So number of references or citations again changes accordingly. Okay, so typically in good journals, it could be anything from 100 plus onwards. Okay, if you're doing an SLR, it could be 150. Meta-analysis could be more, again, depending upon the number of studies that you are using as part of your research. Yeah. So there are a few more things. I think initially also I mentioned about, which I'll be covering. So once we have created the library items, for example, I've been using it for a few months or few years. When we keep adding on various library items, there could be a lot of duplicates in it. So I can go into tools, check for duplicates. This will scan my complete library and then identify the number of items which are found to be duplicate. So out of my 3,000 something, it has found 105 sets to be duplicate. Okay, 105 sets corresponding to 218 duplicates. That means there could be 2 or 3 as well in certain cases. So that's why it is not just 105 to 210, but it's 280. How do I find for them? It gives all these listing. If I click on this small, triangle, what I have, it gives me the individual entries about what I have. Now, then we need to do a decision whether we should merge them or retain any one of them. So as soon as duplicate is found, you should always look for this last column, which indicates the confidence. So if you find here, see the confidence is all 100%. That means the entries that you have, 2 or 3 entries are exactly a replica of each other. Whereas if I scroll down, okay, this confidence is much less. It might be something around, say, 60 or 70%. Now, the reason also you can identify, if you double click and open this further, you will find in the first, this is the first entry. Okay, whereas the second entry, okay, you will find slight variation into this. So the author name, the title, as well as the author name, it says when experience matters, building and the consumer's perspective. Whereas in the first scenario, okay, you'll find, see, the authors are the way the authors are listed is again different. So you can then make a decision about which of the two you should use, or should you be, for example, in this case, it is expanded. Whereas in the other entry, it is something is missing into these names, what it has. Okay. So that has to be looked in for each entry, what it has. It could be in the title, it could be elsewhere as well about whatever we have. And then decide to merge them. Preferably always use the DOI whenever you want to look for these information, the ones which has got a lower confidence. With DOI, you can never make any mistake. Once you update with DOI, you can easily go ahead and merge. So now in order to merge this, what I simply need to do is select this particular one, first one, which has got 100% confidence. I just say confirm merge. So it is removed. The next one, which has got a PDF file, I just say confirm. Now this is also merged. The third, fourth, like this, I can simply, the ones which has got a high confidence, I can easily go ahead and merge them. So if I go back and look for, again for check the duplicates, based upon the merging that I have done, the numbers would go down. Yeah, now I got 100. So I've merged some of them. So accordingly, I can keep looking for the places where I find it to be duplicates and then merge. So that's one. The next tip is, okay, for each of the entries that we have in the library. Okay, now in this, when we have a lot of library items as part of your study, it's a good practice to take a backup of it. That means if anything happens to the library, you should have a backup. It's very, very easy to take a backup in this. So all the entries that we make here, it's all saved into the folder under the documents, a file by the name library.bib. If you look into the properties, it is giving 2603/2022 at 1639. This is the last time when I made any changes or entries or deletion in my library. The time is 1640, whereas this is an entry till 1639. So it's as current as of now. It's a simple bibtex file. In order to take a backup of it, simply do a copy. I'll just copy the file and I will paste it in a particular folder, say the same folder which I created now. I paste it here and give it a name of today, 220326. Now this is the backup available. I can open it with a notepad in order to see the contents. So this says, okay, all the entries that I have as part of my library is now saved in this particular bibtex file. So it's quite a huge file. If you look into this, and never ever make any changes unless you know what the syntax is and what it means. I will never recommend you to make any changes. I'm only showing it for demonstration purposes about the way the file is created. It's a huge file, but huge in the sense number of entries based upon the library item. Otherwise, it's only what 5.35 MB in size. For the number of library items that I have as part of my is 3,392. So it's just 5.35. It's much easier to simply take a backup of it and store it in a place so that in case of any eventualities, for example, your system went down, though you have a replica of it in the cloud, if the replication happens between your corrupt version of your desktop and the cloud version, that will also get corrupted. So make sure that it's a good practice that you always take a backup of your library item. Imagine you're doing your PhD and you are into the final stage, if something goes wrong and you will be in a soup. So I would always recommend you to take a backup of this, which is a good practice. Okay, so that covers about the backup, citations. Okay, all this we have covered for. The other thing is, if you want to, for example, quickly make use of this as a bibtex file. For example, I've got this particular entry. I just do a right click. I can copy it as a formatted citation or a bibtex entry. I can use either of the approaches. The formatted citation is nothing but based upon the citation style that we have selected. So I'll show you both. I just say copy as a formatted one. So if I paste it here, that's what I have. Okay, so this is nothing but the citation style that is selected. Now, how do I know which citation style? It shows off decision support systems. If I choose APS 7th edition and I use the same file, copy as formatted citation, you see this will change. Okay, so it's exactly based upon the citation style you could get the output with this by copy as a formatted citation. Quite useful scenario. Or you could also copy it as a bibtex file. Either you could do for one or multiple. For example, I choose all three, right click, copy as bibtex entry. I can simply create a notepad and all these one. This is okay. Then comes this the second one, and similarly the third one. So all these are now copied into this. So when I want to send it across or share it with my co-authors, I can easily quickly do this for one or multiple files, or I can also do it for all the contents of a folder. So if I'm doing a co-authorship for a particular study, I can have one subfolder created for that study, and only those contents will then be shared with the co-authors rather than sharing my complete library item. So that it becomes very, very useful under this scenario. Okay. I have covered import, export. I have covered delete and all, synchronize. Okay, just make sure that you have the same user ID. Otherwise, there will be a discrepancy between what you have on your desktop version versus the cloud version. So what I mean by the cloud version is nothing but when you are using your web browser and going into Mendeley, the library item that you see here should exactly be a replica of what you see in the desktop version. For that, you should have signed in with your user ID. So my user ID is rajashankaran@gmail.com, and same is what I'm using here as well in order to log in. Okay, so these logins should exactly match between the two, otherwise there would be discrepancy. Okay, I think I have covered all that I had planned for. I've covered export. I've covered everything that I had planned for. So I will open it up for questions if there are any questions from the participants.
Yes, sir. So how we do citation with writer's name and reference number? Do we need to set numbering manually, or it get automatically through citation style format?
Okay, if you're using a numbered referencing style, it's done using that particular style. Let me quickly share my screen and show it to you. Okay, for example, this is what we had. Okay, the citation. This is currently the APA style. Okay, if I now change it to say the numbered style. Okay, so you'll find that all these are changed to numbered now. Okay, so you don't have to do anything specific into here. All these are taken care of within the in-text citation as well as at the in-text citation. So that's the advantage of using the Mendeley software. Okay, so it's done automatically when you change from one style to the other. Even when you're typing in anything. Okay, for example, I add another reference here. I say the research was quite okay, I'm just typing something. Say if I want to cite something here, now look into what happens. Okay, I choose the first one. So see, it went into number 2. Whatever number 2 was following it has become number 3, and this has become 4 and 5, as well as it gets added on based upon what I have selected now. So in the numbered style, you don't have to worry much about this. It automatically does it based upon all the updates, additions, deletions that you perform. Now, if, for example, I remove this number 1, okay, the citation is no longer required. Say I remove this. I just need to refresh it. The rest, everything gets updated accordingly, including what we have at the in-text citation. Okay, so it's quite easy and simple in order to navigate through within the document.
One more question. Sir,
Sure.
it is possible to differentiate between theoretical and experimental research and the citation same in both?
Now, it has nothing to do with theoretical and experimental. The research is of various types. Okay, so citation is something that you are citing the work of other authors and other work. It has nothing to do with theoretical, experimental. The citation typically it's based upon the writing style adopted by the author. Whether you use an in-text citation within the index, there are only two things: parenthetical and the narrative citation. It has nothing to do with theoretical and experimental research. There are many such research options that exist for, but these citations remain similar onto these. It's all about the writing style of an author, if I may put it this way. Yeah, that's why I've been emphasizing from the beginning. I could write in different ways. I could cite them in different ways. It has nothing to do with theoretical and experiment. It's all about what you want to cite from other research.
Thank you so much, sir, for making our doubt clear. The workshop was really very amazing. I would like to propose hearty vote of thanks to you, sir, for gracing today's workshop, and your presence and your wise word help magnifying our cause in best possible ways. I hope all the participants learn a lot from this workshop. I would really like to thank you, sir, for giving us your valuable time, and I'm also delighted to be a part of this workshop. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the feedback and also from the participants. I hope you all make effective use of Mendeley as part of your research, as part of your thesis or dissertation or your PhD work. So do make best use of it, and all the best for all of you. Okay, namaskar to everyone, and bye.
Yes, sir. A good event never end in a world. They take only a pause and keep us awaiting for the next. All good things eventually end. I consider everyone as fortunate that they become a part of this workshop, which was full of knowledge and which make difficult to say goodbye. And remember, don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel, and also tag us on Instagram like hashtag DizzySaksham along with the screenshot in your story. The end of one chapter is the beginning of next. Keep on reading, the best is yet to come. I, Kanika Garg, along with Mandar Neve, your host for the day, sign off on a cheerful note. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, sir.